Hi guys. Alrighty. It's that time again. Miss Jones's story time. Um, so we're on chapter 12. We've got two more chapters after this one. And we've just found out, oh my gosh, in our mystery, the mysterious Moonstone mystery, we have just found out that it was actually Worthington this whole time who stole the mysterious Moonstone. And Evan knows where he hid it. Do we think we know where it is? I think we have a clue in our picture. If you guys don't know, that picture right there is a grandfather clock. It's one of the older versions of a grandfather clock because it actually has statues around it as well. And it has a little deer head. So, chapter 12. Evan climbed on a chair and swung open the glass covering the clock face. It was almost midnight, and the colored gems marking each hour sparkled in the moonlight. None of those are the Musgrave Moonstone, Lady Musgrave said. Those gems are all colored red, yellow, blue, green, and purple. Colonel Musgrave said the Moonstone changes depending on the face of the moon. Evan said. It glows bright white when the moon is full and turns gray, almost black when there's no moon. What does that prove? Cunningham asked. Tonight is the blood moon, Evan said. If the stories about the diamond are true, it should have turned red tonight, at least until the blood moon ends. Artie looked at the clock. And that should be right about now, he said. The chimes inside the grandfather clock began to toll. 12 bells for midnight. Through the window, the deep red of the blood moon faded to a pale orange and soon after to white. The bright red stone that sat over the 12 on the clock face changed too, from a deep red to pale orange to brilliant white. So now this is our close-up of our clock. And we can see the jewel that's top. And that's the jewel. And Evan showing us that jewel is actually changing with the colors of the moon. The Moonstone, Colonel Musgrave cried out. I have the gem from the clock right here, Artie said, pulling it from his pocket. It was floating in Chef Lilith's soup. Then Chef Lilith stole the Moonstone, Worthington said. I was at the bank. I have witnesses. That's what's tough about this crime, Cleo said. It's a complex mystery. Artie perked up. So the solution must be complicated, he said. Of course. There were two people involved. People began looking at one another. Well, who was it? Lady Musgrave said. Placing a hand on her husband's shoulder, Cleo winked at Evan. You may not be as fragile as you seem, she whispered, but I'm also not as dim. I never said you were dim, Evan said. Out with it, Colonel Musgrave said. Who did it? Cleo looked down the line of suspects. The person who helped steal the Musgrave Moonstone was Beatrice Musgrave. Dun dun dun! And now we're at chapter 13. I told you guys we have two more chapters, so let's see. Ooh, chapter 13 is kind of long, guys. So, I'll start chapter 13 and let's see how long this will go, okay? I I did no such thing, Beatrice shrieked. She placed the back of her hand on her forehead, lay down across a long sofa, and fanned herself with her handkerchief. There, Cleo said, pointing at the clock. It's the same glue you had in your bedroom. I can see it around the edge of the diamond. She grabbed a spoon from the broken tea set, climbed up next to Evan, and carefully pried the gemstone from the face of the clock. You left your room at 8, replaced the stone on the clock with the Musgrave Moonstone, and used a ladder to climb down to the kitchen. Your handkerchief protected your hand from getting scraped. Once there, you dropped the stone from the clock into the soup. You insisted on Chef Lilith's famous tomato soup for your wedding, Evan said. That's because it's hard to see a red stone in red soup. Tomato, garlic, and basil soup, Chef Lilith corrected him, holding up her giant spoon. It's famous. Your plan might have worked if you knew more about fake gems, Artie said. Fake gems float. It was Richard, Beatrice said. I'd heard him say that acquiring the gem is the most important thing in his life. I was speaking to your father about you, my little emerald, Cunningham said. This is too much for me to handle, Beatrice cried. I'm too fragile. Cleo and Evan hopped down. Colonel Musgrave crossed the hallway, and took his daughter's hand. Dearest Beatrice, he said, is it true? Did you plan this theft? Cunningham dropped to his knee beside Beatrice. Were you never planning to marry me, my fluffy monkin? He asked. You look nothing like the photograph you sent, Beatrice said. Anyhow, we both know this marriage is more about my father's company than about me. Plus, the mosquitoes in Africa are larger than the house cats. Beatrice began to weep into her handkerchief. Evan noticed a piece of it was worn off. Look, Evan said. He held up the scrap of fabric they had found on the rope ladder. It's a perfect fit. It was Worthington's idea, Beatrice cried. He said no one would be hurt. He said that an insurance company would pay Daddy for the lost diamond and we would sell the Moonstone and be happy together. That is absurd, Worthington said, sneering. The worst detective on the London police force and two brats figuring out my plans. I was supposed to be on my way to America by now. America? Beatrice wailed. You told me to meet you on the ship to Italy. Worthington's face twitched. Sorry about that. Plans change, Bunny. He lunged across the hallway and snatched the Musgrave Moonstone from Cleo. Worthington turned to run, but Watson snapped his teeth onto the banker's pants and snarled. Evan and Cleo grabbed hold of his arms, but Worthington pulled free of them all. What? That's when Chef Lilith conked him on the head with her giant spoon. Worthington dropped to the floor, dazed. One boat ticket to America fell from his pocket. Kumar clutched Worthington's jacket. The only trip you'll be taking is to jail, he said. I've always wanted to say that, Artie said, disappointed. Feel free. Artie turned to Worthington and opened his mouth to speak. He exhaled. Well, now you've taken the fun out of it, he said. And there's our picture of the fork that our good chef Lilith actually set up. And Chef Lilith is who again? Do you remember? Why don't you find the fun in putting on the handcuffs? Evan said. Great idea. Grand idea. He pulled out a set of iron handcuffs and snapped them on Worthington's wrists. The only banking you'll be doing, Artie paused, is banking in jail. That made no sense, Evan said. Yes, I'll have to work on that, Artie said. In the meantime, I'll send word to Chief Rutherford that this crime has been solved. Watson woofed. Cleo clapped. Your job is saved, she said. It looks that way. Artie began emptying his pockets. He pulled out a sealed purple envelope and handed it to Cleo. Give me a moment while I find the key to the handcuffs. The key. Evan and Cleo glanced at each other. After loading most of the table with loose change, scraps of paper, and dog treats, Artie finally pulled out a thin chain. A silver key with swirling designs dangled from it. He held it out to the kids. Hold this for me, Artie said. I don't want to lose it. Do you mind if I hold it as well? Chief Lilith said. I've always been interested in police work. Certainly, Artie said. Evan, Cleo, and Chef Lilith grabbed the chain. Letters burst from the key like 1,000 crazy spiders. The letters tumbled in the air around them and began to spell words. The words became sentences, the sentences paragraphs. Before long, they could barely see, and then everything went black. Dun, dun, dun! So now we're at chapter 14, guys. See you next time for our last chapter, which has a key at the top.